Hello, my lovely.
Hello.
Hello. Oh my God, it feels like such a professional setup, and I'm so used to talking to you like in our PJs in the living room.
Literally.
And here I have you today in what looks like a living room, but it's a whole podcast studio.
Yeah.
And what a journey to get here today.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It feels...
I feel like we need to talk about it.
Yeah, it feels a bit surreal, to say the least.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, on your way to me, you got into a bit of an accident and that shook you up a little bit. And today we're going to talk about somatic work and your healing journey. So it's interesting that this happened right before this podcast episode where your nervous system was
off whack, yes.
Exactly. And how were you able to regulate it? Because you're definitely in a different space than when I first saw you.
Yeah.
And then I've been having phone issues. So I've been all day without a phone.
Freedom.
Another topic of conversation for today's episode. So I'm really grateful to have you today. So today I have Haya Yasmeen, a very dear, dear friend of mine. And
Thank you for
it feels like
having me.
I've known you for forever.
It does feel that way.
Right?
Yeah, it does. After celebrating your birthday this past weekend, it's like, wait, I've only known her for this amount of time? But yeah, it's been a while.
And it's been a while. It's been a year and a bit. But we've known each other for longer.
Yeah.
And Dubai brought us together. So that's something to be really grateful for the city, that it creates beautiful friendships. And yeah, I mean, talking about my birthday, you were like handling so many different parts of my birthday. And I felt so comfortable and at ease with you. And that's how I felt from when we first met. It's like how comfortable and at ease with you I felt, and you felt too, because we were talking about like our whole lives within the first hour.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I shared things with you that I haven't shared with, first of all, the world, for sure, and some of my closest friends in the first day I met you in person. So it's interesting when these things happen. And this actually takes us to how we talk about the somatic work and the nervous system and learning how the safety you feel. We think that it's the safety of others, but it's actually what your nervous system feels in order to feel safe in that way. Of course, the other person makes it easier to feel that way. But yeah, it's all about that and how calm and collective you can feel around certain people versus other humans and other energies.
That's for sure. And when you were talking about all of this, I feel like this might be something that's very new to the people that know you.
Yeah.
And that have been following your journey for the last, let's say, 8 years. You're entering a whole new phase and a whole new era in your life.
Yeah.
A new chapter. And so that's probably what we'll start with. I mean, the tables have turned. Today, I'm the one doing the interviewing.
Definitely.
You're the one answering the questions.
It's a bit awkward for me, but
Is
it's
it?
nice.
Is it?
I mean, not being in control, being a guest, it's nice.
It's nice.
There's less pressure.
Is there less pressure?
I guess
Yeah?
in some ways.
In some ways.
No. There's
some
some ways where I have to be more vulnerable here, so I guess not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I feel like vulnerability is one of the key things, right? Especially when wanting to interact and engage with people that don't really know you, but to share your story with them. And this is a big question. What is your story? How do you want to tell your story? What is the new story you want to tell?
That's a good one. What's the new story I want to tell? I mean, my story is... I was born and raised in Palestine, and the little girl from Palestine was raised under the Second Intifada, and her dream to become an actress was born there. And from there on, I felt like I wanted to break free and go follow that dream. I couldn't follow it being there, so I went to theater school, studied abroad, became an actress. Moved to Hollywood, did that whole life for a hot second. Wasn't as glamorous as people think it is and continue to think it is. And I decided, and it's funny, I've been reflecting on that when I was younger, how much more courage. I've been told in the past couple of months, I've been told I'm very courageous because I've been taking a lot of life-changing decisions. But I was looking at me back then when I decided to leave Hollywood, this dream that I had since I was a little girl, since I was 13. And I got to be there and live there and start acting, and I was miserable. And I took that decision for myself that this is not the life I want. I woke up one day, I was sick, I was lonely, and I felt so alone in that city. And I realized this is not the place I'm going to make my dream come true. So I went off and traveled for a bit to see where I'm going to take my art and creativity. And I found myself in Dubai, which is where my journey of creating my own travel show started. It's been a journey and a half. It's like, it was always kind of like I was the person who was bound to travel till the age 13. And then I started traveling the world for a living and bringing my story to every country I traveled to and bringing people's stories and experiences to the viewership, to the viewers we had, which were about, millions of people watching us on TV. And it was a high. Like the first couple of years creating, it's like creating something from, I was told, I was like, I want to travel the world. This is what I want to do. And it was shifting because I got into media and the acting thing shifted a bit. And I found like this is an opportunity. So I was like, okay, let's travel the world. And I was told, okay, if you can do it on your own, get the sponsors, create a show, build it, and, not cost the channel anything, you can go ahead. And it was a challenge and I took it and I did it. And I've been doing it up until now for 6 years, where I work with different clients from tourism boards, hotels, airlines, creators, where I produce and then present my own travel segment on TV. It's been a learning experience. It's gotten me to where I'm at today. I think travel changes you. I always say travel. If you want to get to know someone more, travel with them. If you want to clear your mind, travel. If you want to feel more independent, travel. If you want questions answered, travel. Travel gets you out of your comfort zone. Travel makes you see the world differently. We're so comfortable in our comfort zones. We're always used to a routine or the comfort zone we grew up in or the place we've created to keep our comfort. But travel gives you that moment to step out of that and what you're used to, the norm you're used to. The simple thing of like walking in the street and grabbing a coffee and being alone or walking solo, which we don't get to do in Dubai as much, walking into a cafe, hearing some music, following it in cities that, allow you to do that. Whatever it is, wherever you go. So travel has changed me. Travel has evolved me as a person. It's I've had some of my happiest moments and some of my worst moments on this filming this show and this journey. And Anthony Bourdain was one of my teachers.
Love him.
Yeah.
Love him.
And it's funny because before I wanted to do a travel show, I used to watch him with my uncle when I lived in San Francisco. My uncle loved him. And we would watch him all the time. I was so mesmerized by his whole way and process. And I would always see if he's visited a country when I started my travel show, and I'd watch his episode before I go there. And I was going to Sri Lanka, and he had gone there. And I chose 2 of the things I wanted to do that were part of his show. And one of them was to visit this restaurant. And I watched it, and as I landed in Sri Lanka, I found out that he had just,
passed away.
Passed away. And it hit me really hard at the time. And I couldn't explain it because people are like, you don't know this person, and and I wasn't yet into this whole much more spirituality and more aware of the energies and the work I've been doing now. And I'm like, why did this hit me so hard? And it wasn't a surprise to me that they said, you know, he took his life away. And people were like, why would someone like him, everyone around me kept saying, why would someone like him take his own life away? Even if that's true or not true, if that did happen. But I wasn't surprised because I've lived in places like Hollywood and I've lived in a place like doing this show. And these things that look so glamorous to the outside world and people think we have it all together and we have the perfect life, on the inside it can get very dark sometimes. And it can be very lonely and depressing. So yeah, for me, when everyone was asking that question, I wasn't surprised. And that's when I feel I started asking myself, is this what I want to do? Do I want to be on the road all this time alone, seeing the most beautiful places? But when I turn around, yeah, I have a great team with me, but I'm not sharing it with people. It's a job. At the end of the day, it's a job. It's a job I loved, but it's a job.
To be fair, when you were talking about all of these external trips that you've taken and visited all of these countries and how you learned so much about yourself, the question that came to my mind is, how about the internal travel that you do to explore your inner world, which you brought up, right? Like traveling and being in different environments bring up different sides and aspects of you for sure. And I find that you do confront parts of yourself that you don't necessarily sit with when you're in the comfort of your home and you're in your routine. It really takes that change in routine and space and location to bring into your awareness things that you might have not known about yourself, or at least you might have hidden. Yeah. But the internal journey, regardless of where you go, whether you're in your living room or you are 20 hours away by plane from home, what is that like, right? And especially because you're on that journey right now, and that's how you and I very much connected. Obviously, we connect on so many different things, but I feel like that was one of the things that we understood each other so well, is this inner journey that we've been on, and how that's been like, and how is that shaping the person you are today, and how is that leading you to making different decisions, and how do you bridge? I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but how do you bridge that world?
Exactly.
Right? What you're feeling and experiencing inside, and the work and the services that you're bringing out into the world.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think I've always been someone that wanted to help or serve or give back. Even when I like dreamt about becoming an actress one day, my first dream ever, funny enough, not a lot of people know this, but I wanted to be the first Palestinian female president.
Wow.
That was like a
Inshallah, one
between
day.
8 to 10-year-old dreams. You know, these dreams that you think you can achieve anything you dream of.
There are dreams
that was a dream
for a reason.
Yeah.
For a reason.
So that was a dream, because to me it's like, why are there we don't have any, you know, female or woman presence in our government as Palestinians. And I looked up to the women in my family because I saw how strong they were, and in the community, and what they've done and what they've built and what they've accomplished. And then after growing up in the Intifada and seeing how unjust life is, and having to go through every day the checkpoints and being at gunpoint and the harassment and the trauma, I started realizing, and watching the news and being disappointed by the world. It's funny because look at where we're at now. Now people are hearing these stories. These stories as a little girl who had no social media, and all we had was media that controlled the narrative. For us, it's like we see it in our eyes, the everyday and the reality, but then we watch the news and we're like, what? But this doesn't go with this.
There's a mismatch.
No, this is not. And I had this a big mismatch. And I had this thing when I was growing up where I felt like the suffocation, you know? I was always felt like I'm suffocated because I could see the reality. And you can't tell someone who's a young child that what they're seeing is wrong, but then the news is telling you what you're seeing is wrong. Or they're changing the narrative of it all.
And they're gaslighting you, right? You get gaslit from the second that you're out into the world as a Palestinian.
100%. Continuously. till this day. But, you know, so now this is why also sometimes...
my body's like heating up as
me
we
too,
said
you
that.
know, you get... Now...
Yeah, and when you said the suffocation part, interestingly, before I start talking again, like my throat, there's like this iffy feeling, and I'm like, I need to cough, and I'm like, don't cough. But literally, I felt it in my throat, this feeling of not being able to speak your truth.
Yes. And that's been my journey and finding that. Yeah. And I think this is what, you know, we're talking at a pivotal point in my life, because, you know, I moved into theater. Acting and the world of arts was always healing for me. My family is in it. My uncle founded the Conservatory of Music there. I was cast in the first Palestinian musical play. That's where I found out about my passion to acting, dance. I was always a more creative person. And I felt like, oh, that could be the way to get this world to listen to us. That could be a channel of people will see me as human and will listen to me. If I act, if I do a film about Palestine, if I do a play about it, if I dance about it. So that became a passion, other than it being obviously a big passion for me, and I enjoyed it. It was also a form of reaching and getting our voice across. And the minute I left that place, it's been a continuous journey of silencing that voice to fit in. I moved to the States, and it's like, you don't need to be too Palestinian. You can be Palestinian, but like, you know, when I moved to Hollywood, I had to get the American accent. So I get all the roles, not just the terrorist role or the Latina girl, because I spoke a bit of Spanish. You can get the pool of everything, okay? We'll do the American accent. Move to Hollywood, all the teachers are, you know, or all the things are owned by Zionists. Okay, so let's not say you're Palestinian. Let's say you're American. You're American anyways, right? Yeah, I am American. I'm American Palestinian. We'll leave the Palestinian part out. Let's say you're from San Francisco. Yeah, let's say that. The accent started changing, everything started shifting. And that's when, obviously, I decided to leave.
Doesn't that create so much rage? Like, you're saying all of this and I'm like feeling so much anger.
But you justify it because you're like, I want to reach. And they tell you, reach up there first.
And then say what you want to say.
And then say what you want to say. Because when you're big and up there, they can't break you that easily, which is the reality, by the way. I've seen it and I've, you know, felt it.
Up until now, by the way, I mean, when you were talking about...
Yeah. I'm told now, today in my life, I'm told I'm too Palestinian, or I feel too much. I've been told that, you know, and recently, or, you know, you have too much happening. Oh, sorry, excuse me that my cousin got imprisoned and harassed, and, you know, excuse me for being born and raised in Palestine. I'm sorry, did I bother the comfort and the privilege that you're seated in? And yeah, so finally becoming fully aware and starting to take back my power and reclaiming my power is the journey I'm on now.
I love that for you, by the way, and I've seen it so much over the last year and a half. I really feel like we came into each other's lives for that reason. I've been on that journey too. You're very much on that journey.
And we've talked about justice when we first met.
We said justice
how me and you are so similar that we want justice, you know?
Yeah.
And now my whole vision of that has shifted, because that want for justice is always there. It's always going to be there. But how do you go about wanting the justice? Because growing up, you want the justice with anger. And I'm going to get it and I deserve it. Yeah, you do deserve it. But all this anger is going to aggravate my nervous system. It's going to make me more in fight or flight, or it's going to make me more not see things straight. And it's making peace with the justice and understanding that, you know, sometimes to get justice, we have to lose in how people think losing is, whether it's stepping away from these systems that have been made to keep us in that box, whether it's not to choose to answer these people who say, oh, you're too much, or you're Palestinian. Choose to be like, okay, thank you, and move on. I was this person just like a couple of years ago, even a year ago. But it's the journey of this justice thing of how do we look at justice to be able to heal the world and heal our traumas and to move forward and to achieve justice. Because I think if we go about it in a more regulated way, we will be able to achieve it, and we will achieve it.
So you're touching a lot on somatic work right now with talking about like regulation and your nervous system. And I know a lot of your stories. I would say I know most of your stories related to trauma. And it's obviously up to you to share what you feel called to sharing. If you feel like sharing any of these stories, if there's anyone that like resonates or that you feel regulated enough to talk about, because
Exactly.
I'm gonna share this as well. Like there are a lot of stories that happened in my past that asked me to talk about it 5 years ago. There was no way that I could talk about it without like tearing, crying, and feeling like my heart racing. And today, interestingly, with a friend of mine, I was able to talk about a story, and it's been a while that I can talk about the story without being in the story. It's almost like it happened to someone else and it didn't happen to me, and there's zero emotional charge towards that story. And actually, now that I'm talking about this, you shared a story just the other day, and I feel like that one is one that you could maybe talk about when you entered the bus.
Because it's so true what you're saying. It's in trauma, in somatic trauma, which is what I'm studying now, is we are built in a way in Palestine that our armor and our form of resilience is to talk about our stories. Oh, I've been through this. I've been at gunpoint this. I was almost killed here. I was this, I was this. But just even saying it now, I feel a charge starting to come up. And when I first started working with a coach that was my coach and my therapist, somatic trauma therapist, she told me, I started seeing her after I had a very traumatic experience that I saw death and I thought that was it. And it was very scary, and it was in Palestine, and I was, it was that story I'm definitely not ready yet to share, but I decided to seek help because I had 2 experiences that happened to me in 2 weeks, that like one with the occupier and one in a relationship that really like shook my whole being, and both put me in a place of not feeling safe and being threatened. Whether my life was threatened, my future was threatened, I was, in a very scary place in those 2 experiences. That's when I decided to start working. Someone recommended somatic trauma healing, and when she first started talking to me, she's like, I said, yeah, I'm seeing you because, and I started saying the story, and she's like, I'm going to stop you there. I was like, what? And she's like, I might never end up hearing your whole story. And that's okay. And that has nothing to do with me not wanting to know your story. But what I care about right now is your safety and your nervous system and your mental health. And I'm like, what is this woman talking about? I want to tell her what just happened to me. I was almost killed. I was almost, And then I was like, oh, this is what it is after I started working. There's some stories, the minute we start talking about them, the charge that comes into our body and recovering from it can take you hours to days. And I've been living that my whole life where I became, sometimes I feel like I'm in a car show where people walk in and they're like, oh, Haya, tell us about your story. I go with friends and they know I like to talk about it because it's our story and I want to raise awareness. But then it became like a thing, oh, tell them what happened to you here. Oh, tell them what happened on this checkpoint. It's like, okay, and then what happens to me? I go home, I'm alone, a nervous system that's up, like whether it's fight or flight, with tension, with all the anxiety that comes up, with the sicknesses that started coming up, with everything. And I decided this healing has helped me the most in dealing with all this. And I started realizing it's my way I want to learn how to do it because I want to help others get to this regulated nervous system.
With trauma, it's interesting as well, right? Because it's a journey and there's many layers that you tackle and not all at once, right? And sometimes you're like, okay, like I'm better. And then something happens.
And it comes back.
And you're dysregulated again.
Yeah.
And you're feeling all of the feelings
like
again.
You said, your story today, you don't have tears and all that, but then tomorrow you might be just dysregulated in general, and if that story comes up and you want to say it, you might feel it again in some way, and not necessarily the same intensity, because we do walk away from story, we do feel better about telling.
I have to say, you can definitely break free from stories,
for sure.
And this one is definitely one I broke free from. I will say, when I was telling the story, the part that got me a little bit emotional wasn't about what the person had done to me or that I experienced from the person themselves. It was more about how in the past I hadn't recognized my strength in having gone through that. So when I was talking about the story today, and I was saying the one thing that I learned very recently is just how strong I was at that age for holding that type of baggage on my shoulders and never seeing it that way. That was the part that got me a little bit emotional. That was the part that I felt like, whoa, like that version of me, I was like 13 years old, having gone through these things and never had the support back then. I'm giving it to myself today. I'm giving that version of me that recognition. And I feel like that's really where healing takes place, is between you and yourself. Like, can you give yourself that recognition that you did walk through fire and you went through so many challenges, and to honor your journey so far.
I know, and we've talked about this a lot, is I don't give myself enough credit.
Exactly.
And I'm working on that.
Exactly.
I don't. I really don't.
I really wanted to say that to you, because I really want you to see all of the hard work that you're doing. And this, I mean, you've always been incredible, but I just feel like you're stepping into this version of you that a lot of people are going to be triggered by, I will say.
We don't want that. We want to regulate everyone's systems so we don't get triggered by each other, and understanding the triggers that are from within us. And this is another thing we discuss.
We always talk about this together,
The trigger is us. And when people, for me, even in the beginning, when people say if the person in front of you is triggering you, they're a mirror, or there's something in you that is, and in the beginning I would be like, what do you mean by that? And now it's like, yeah, the trigger you're feeling from the person in front of you is something within you that you haven't made peace with, or you haven't faced, or you're not comfortable with. So if you see, a strong, successful woman and you want to bring her down, why would you want to bring her down? Is it because you want to be that successful, independent, strong woman? And when you recognize that, you will learn how to empower that woman and lift that woman, because by lifting her, you're also lifting yourself up and you're getting there. And going back to the regulated nervous system, just to make it like more, concise and understandable for people, is post going through these traumatic experiences for me, and post choosing to understand what's happening in my system, somatics have given me the language finally to understand my body. Because I could never understand my body before. I would have all these, whether anxieties, whether when I get to a checkpoint I can't talk, whether it be I can't sleep at night, the insomnia, or when I'm about to get on a flight. I travel the world. The minute I'm about to get on a flight to go home to Palestine, I don't sleep the night before. I need an Nexium for my stomach because the acidity is up the roof. And, I'm like, what's happening? I love going to airports and traveling. And that's when I started realizing all these things are affecting me on a deeper level, and went down the somatic trauma therapy work. And it's helped me so immensely that I've chosen to now start studying it myself, because other than bringing it to others, and especially in Palestine, now it's needed more than ever, it's also bringing it to the people around me, because by healing myself and by regulating my nervous system, I can help heal and regulate the people around me that I love, and I want them to be more regulated. In places that are so busy, even now that it's so soothing for me when I talk about it, I feel my whole body like calms, because in places that we're always in this rush, in this expectation, in this like fire and all this, we tend to be functioning from an out-of-body space, more the head space. You know, when they say you're more in your head, when the thoughts are, the minute you're back in your body and you're feeling and recognizing where it hurts, where the friction, where the fire is happening, where the, what do you call it, the activation is happening, you're able to like calm the nervous system and come back to it and connect to yourself and get your voice back, you know? And that's what the journey been for me, is how to regain my power, regain my voice, because all these traumas that I've lived all through my life, it had to come to these two intensive ones a couple of years ago that were like, okay, I thought my life was, you know, I went
shambles.
Yeah. And I saw a healer we both love so much, and he said,
we're gonna send this to him.
I went to him and I said, my life is falling apart. I'm at rock bottom. And he said, no, your belief system is falling apart.
Oof.
And that's exactly what was happening. This belief system that of how we should show up, how we should act, what we should wear, how we should speak, how we should be on that Instagram and that personality that everyone sees and thinks I am.
All an illusion.
The delusion and the illusion and all of it. And the minute I started looking at it like that, and you know, I opened the shutters and I'm like, let's go on this journey. It's been wild, but it's been freeing. It's been freeing on many levels.
I love that, by the way. And I will say that it's Pandora's box for sure when you choose to walk this journey and to take this path towards rediscovering just how powerful you are, because it is a rediscovery, right? It's, wow, I was this all along and I forgot that I was this being all along. And to come out of our slumber and actually be awake and alert and in service as well, right? It's like, okay, I went through this journey, and let it not all be for nothing. Let it be there so that I can serve others that are looking for guidance. And I'm mentioning guidance to you because we had this conversation before.
Yeah.
And you and I are both people that look for guidance within ourselves a lot, that's for sure. Of course, it's nice when we have someone that is mirroring to us what we need to hear. And I remember you were like you were just looking for guidance, and you're just like, I want guidance, right? Like, I want someone to guide me out of the space of limbo and the state that I'm in as I'm transitioning from one way of being to another, from one space to another. And I was like, but you are that guide, and you really are.
Yeah.
And to see you coming to that again, like, you're so incredibly intuitive with so many things.
I know, it's scary sometimes. Huh?
It is. It is pretty scary. But I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, can we switch it to like from scary to magical?
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Like, it's pretty magical.
It's powerful.
It's powerful.
That's what I've been tapping into. I'm like, yeah, I want to listen to my gut feeling. I was listening to Gabor Mate's podcast a couple of days ago, and he talks about this gut feeling. Because people, we tend to, in our culture, I even talk to friends that they're like, they want to push it away. Because sometimes there's a thin line between the gut feeling and that paranoia, you know? But he talks about it in a very beautiful way. But what I took from it, and I'd like to share with you, is it's like, the gut feeling was put there for us to be, you know, to have these alarms and to know if it's guidance. Gut feelings are guidance. Our gut is our second brain. And when you feel something, listen into it. And if you are lucky enough to have this power of being intuitive or feel those things, that's a blessing. That's a gift. And you will know if it's a gut feeling and it's truth, because if it's coming from a place, or if it's coming from a place of paranoia, you will know that when you sit with it and you ask yourself, is it coming from a place of fear, or is it coming from a place of knowing? Where do you feel it? How do you feel it? And
are you overthinking it? Because a lot of
Yes.
times if you're overthinking your
Yes.
gut feelings, then you're
that's
going
when you
to
are pushing them
repress
away.
it.
Yeah, of
Exactly.
course. Of course.
Although I will say for all of us, our intuition doesn't come with an explanation. It doesn't say, oh, you need to do this because.
Yes.
You just need to do this.
Yes.
Full stop.
Yes.
And that's the part that people have a hard time with because they want to rationalize it. They want to understand it.
Yeah.
And we rationalize everything. I mean, we were talking about this too, right? Like we rationalize our feelings. And it's like, well, allow yourself to feel what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to feel into the shock of being hit by a car or by whatever it may be that you're experiencing. And that's how transformation really takes place. It's not by shutting it down because as you and I both know, shutting it down just brings it back up to the surface more intensely each time. And
it's also brings anger, which we're seeing a lot around the world now.
So much, yeah.
And this is our work, because I would also face all these situations with anger or with like conviction and that justice person I'm telling you about. It's like, today I got in a car accident. Okay, I got hit. In the first moment, it was fear. It was the shock. It was like, oh, this is happening to me. Okay. And then it's like, instead of being like angry at the person, it's okay, what is this telling me? Okay, I'm safe. I'm in one piece. You have to, it's conscious effort to like how do you say? Redirect our thoughts and our feelings. It's also the same with what I've shared with you about why people, like, this is one lesson that's been really coming up for me of how I'm used to doing things, the justice thing. Like, let's say something happens or someone does you wrong in life. And usually for you, you want justice, whether you want to take them to court, whether you want to go tell on them, whether you want to, you feel like you need to follow the system that's been built for us to take them to justice. But then when you think about it and sit with it and see why is this happening to me, or what is the message I'm trying to get out of this experience or out of this friendship? Maybe, the court thing is a big one. Let's take it to a simple thing of a fight with a friend and not seeing eye to eye. And sometimes we're so attached to the idea of, I want to prove my point, but I'm right, but I'm this. But then when you step away and look at it and you're like, okay, what did this teach me? What is this bringing to the surface for me? Going back to the mirror. And then winning isn't always proving your point.
Yes.
Winning isn't always having the last word. Winning isn't always taking that person to judgment day, Winning sometimes for your mental health, for your nervous system, for yourself, and for what we want to create in this world is stepping away and saying thank you. And as difficult...
And no thank you.
And no thank you.
No thank you.
No thank you, and bye. This is not for me. As simple as that, and as complicated as that.
Yeah. There's a saying that I love, and it's, do you want to be free or do you want to be right?
Exactly.
And you were talking about freedom.
Yeah.
And so this really ties it into the freedom, because
100%.
It's like, do you want to be free right now or do you want to be right? And I struggled with that for a long time. It's like, but I want to be right.
Me too.
I want to have the last word.
Of course.
I'm the full stop.
All of us,
here,
the ego.
right?
The ego's there.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
And I realized that it depletes you.
Big time.
It is super draining.
Yeah.
Your energy just feels like it's constantly fighting, controlling, attacking as well, attached to the results, versus asking yourself like, okay, I just want to be free right now. I don't want to be right.
And it's anyone who's listening to us right now would probably, if you ask them, and that's what we do, in Somatics, picture yourself in this scenario of keeping this and proving and getting that, and then picture yourself of like saying no thank you or yes thank you, and like freeing yourself from the story. Which one sits better? I bet you 90% of the people are going to choose freedom. If it's not 90% of because who wants to have their nervous system be like this 24/7? Who wants to not sleep at night? Who wants to be waiting on that text or how to answer and questioning? No one wants that. That's exhausting. We don't want that. But we go that way because ego, that's how we've been taught to do things. But then, you know, you see these big guides or healers when they tell you, love your enemy. You know, or when Jesus says, turn your other cheek.
And how many times should I forgive? 7 times, and he says no, 77 times.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh my God, I've got a lot of
And in the beginning, you're like, what, really? But yeah, this is it. And these people have reached these limits of, to them, it's like freedom. That's what freedom is.
So would you put freedom and love in the same category?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah, because freedom is also loving yourself, and loving others is freedom. And you see what that energy is bringing to the table and how powerful that is. That's what I'm talking about. It's not, you know, it's going to the depths of it and unraveling it, because that anger is only going to create more anger. The more friction is going to create more friction. The more hate is going to create more hate. And where are we going to end up? More darkness.
100%. And it takes, by the way, that level of awareness to do this kind of work, right? And I will also say it's, in a lot of ways, I find that we're privileged to do this work right now and to bring this into the world, to be that light for others to go through their journeys and then find you as their guide, right? And I would say that your story is a story that contains multitudes. It's not just one story. There's so many different things that we touched upon today, but just scratch the surface.
It feels like there's so much more now.
There's so much more to touch upon, but I feel like it gives a good glimpse into everything that you've been through.
And I just want to say to like everyone who, trauma is not just in places that you grow up in a place like Palestine or the trauma we've been through. Everyone can be, anyone, a child who's watching a scary movie that doesn't have a parent to regulate them right after can be a traumatized child. So it's like simplifying things and being kinder and understanding that trauma comes in all shapes and forms. To be kinder to ourselves and the people around us right now is a really important thing. And yeah, like you're saying, I mean, there's so much more to talk about on all this, but the minute we have, I feel the minute we have a more regulated nervous system as a collective, that's the time when we will all become more free. And just to recognize that that's something important to give ourselves and others to be able to get, because 80% of the time in busy, crazy cities that we're talking about, people are not in that regulated nervous system. And that's what creates all the rest of the friction that's happening around us.
100%. It's very, very true, and it's very well said. And I find that, yes, when I moved to Dubai, I was dysregulated for some time. And you have to pick and choose, right? Where you spend your time, who you spend your time with, what you choose to consume, what foods you choose to eat, because that can also...
That's all part of it.
It's all part of it. All of it, right?
Yes.
Like you're on your journey right now with food and diet and taking care of your gut health, because it's... one thing affects the other. It's like a domino effect.
Big time.
You might think that, okay, overthinking is just affecting your mind, but it's affecting you on a cellular level. So to really take your time on your healing journey, I would say there is no destination. We both know that very well. And every time you think you've arrived, you're like, oh, there's more. Right? Yeah. And sometimes it's the littlest things that can trigger your system all over again. I mean, like for me, as simple as like my phone not working, like just having to come back to my heart time and time again and being like, okay, like, and then, right, there are bigger fish to fry in the world.
Big time. And who would have known, like when I think about it, talk about trauma, that I was telling a friend the other day, I'm returning I'm going home soon because I'm doing a
180 shift. Let's put it that way.
I'm doing a 180 shift in my life, but I'm going home for a bit. There's been a calling. And I was like, who would have known the place that has traumatized me, the place that I left thinking, you know, I need to follow my dreams outside of this place and make these dreams come true and all that. And now I'm returning home to make my dreams come true.
I love that. You're not just returning home there, but you're also returning home here. Yeah. And that's the most magical place to reside in. It's when you're living in that space. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this conversation.
Me too.
I'm so grateful for you for sharing all of this with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my first podcast, by the way.
This is your first podcast?
In this way, yes.
In this way.
In this way, being this vulnerable, yes.
Yeah.
So thank you. I feel like I'm going to watch and be like, why the perfectionist presenter is going to come up and be like, what did... But I'm really grateful for this, that I was able to show up as I am.
Yeah, and to announce as well that you are going down the path of sharing your services on trauma healing and becoming a trauma coach, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
And people are going to be able to follow you on that journey even more as you open up about it even more.
Yes.
And
this is the beginning of the opening.
Just the beginning.
And thank you for letting me do it here. This is so special.
It really is. Honestly, it really is very special.
Yeah, it's the beginning.
I feel like we need to hug it out.
Yeah.
Can we hug it out?
You can hug it out.
Let's hug it out.
Of course. To healing the world. To healing us, we're healing the world. Right.
Yeah.
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 That's it. Yeah. By healing us, we're healing the world.
I'm like,
by healing us, we're healing the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Always, by the way. Everything has a ripple effect, and don't underestimate yourself in the sense of like, don't underestimate the journey that you're on, and even rewiring a simple belief system.
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to really sit with the discomfort and to take that leap of faith and to trust that your anxiety is also part of the guidance.
Yes.
The trauma is also part of the guidance.
Yeah.
Everything is part of the guidance if you look at it that way. And it's just, are you listening?
Yeah.
And are you answering the call?
Exactly.
I would say that those two things are important, because you can listen and then not answer the call. You can not listen and then miss the call. And answering the call is possibly the greatest thing that you can ever do, because it will always take you towards your North Star, towards where you're meant to go and who you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And like, spoiler alert, you're only supposed to be yourself. So like,
exactly.
That's the crazy part, right? Like, you're just supposed to be you. After
100%.
all, that's all you're meant to be doing. It's to be. And just to end it on this note,
authentically you.
Just authentically you. Just to end it on this note, we were out the other night and someone asked you like, oh, by the way, like, what do you do? Remember?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then you were like answering.
Yeah.
And then you came to us and you're like, you know what? If anybody asks me what I do going forward, I'm going to say...
Nothing.
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 I do nothing.
I do nothing. I wake up in the morning. I make my matcha. I dream. I drive. I show up. I see friends, but I do nothing.
I do nothing.
I do nothing.
Because the doingness is not coming from the doingness. It's coming from you being. And
also the doingness is also, people want to put you in that box of what do you do?
Exactly.
So they can put you in which box, so they can categorize you in that, and then see how the conversation continues.
Yes.
And I've played with that over the years. Sometimes I go into rooms and I don't say what I do.
Yeah.
And then the minute I say what I do, I see the whole energy shift, you know?
Yeah.
So now I'm like, no, I do nothing.
I do nothing.
Yeah. And it's so joyful to say, I do nothing, you know?
So I took it a step further. So the next morning I'm talking to my friend and I'm like, you know, it was so funny she said that. And I was like, if somebody asks me, who am I? I'm going to answer, I'm no one.
No.
I do nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm no one.
Yeah.
And I'm becoming nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, this for me is one of the teachings by Ram Dass, a beautiful, beautiful spiritual teacher. And it's about becoming nobody.
Yeah.
Just become nobody.
Yeah. How freeing is that?
I love it. And that's like perfect free moment.
Freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.